Welcome, everybody, to the Eden Army podcast. I know we're talking over there on kick.com, and we are definitely still streaming over there, but we're having problems integrating Kick Chat into Restream. So I have to look over here to see what's going on in Kick. And there's a lot of you over on Kick, right? Guys over there. Fireman Ed finally made it. Meta's over there. Of course, Terry's over there. Kelly made it in. Mike with FIB is there. So real cool. So, as you all know, my name is Pete Robertucci. I'm glad to be here with you on this Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that stuff here. Just scan that QR code there. We're trying to get to our minimum amount of YouTube subscribers. So please go to our channel and hit that subscribe button over on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. But definitely do that. Reverend French just made it in the house. Mama Tooch is in the house. Battle Gnome. This is all good. Kick is blowing up over there. I love it, guys. We're going to do things a little bit different tonight. We have a great guest. And if you guys have read any of my books, you know that I am a dog dude. I love dogs. So I've been trying to get this cat on the podcast for the last year since the last Mountain Readiness. And that's Joel from Fortress Canine, right? Because I really want to pick his brain. I want to talk about how to train dogs and the importance of having a good security dog around your house, if nothing more than an alarm system, right? But first, what I want to do, because there was breaking news today, I want to discuss, because I know it's going to come up, I want to discuss the active shooter over in Florida, the FSU University shooting. As far as I know, from last I heard, 2 people were killed. Non-students were killed, with 6 injured. A single shooter is now in custody after being wounded by the responding officers, which had an amazing response time. Kudos to you guys. You saved a lot of lives. The shooter has been identified as the son of a Leon County Sheriff deputy, although the motive has not been disclosed. And as usual, people on social media are already blasting out. He's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. But it's all speculation. I'm not going to go there. Like all active shooter events, unlike the fake news that's out there, I will refrain from comment until more details come out, right? So that's just the way we do business here. You know that's the way we do business. So with that being said, I'm just looking over on chat here, seeing if everybody's come over. Yeah, Kick's still not coming over. Sorry, guys, but I will monitor Kick over here on this screen, guys. I promise. So without any further ado, listen, guys, let's look at an awesome promo from Fortress Canine before we bring in our guest.
Let's go.
Let's go. Joel from Fortress Canine. My brother, welcome to the Eden Army podcast. I've been trying to get you on forever, and I'm glad you made it here on this Friday night.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thursday night. Sorry.
That's right.
Thursday night. Yeah, it's too much going on in the background.
I know.
Joel, tell us a little bit about yourself as far as before you started Fortress Canine. Tell us a little bit about the history before you went into this venture.
Absolutely. So I spent 12 years on active duty in the Army. I was an MP officer and deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq. I was at the Pentagon right after 9/11 and spent about 7 months down in the embassy in Bogota, Colombia, helping out with the counter-drug stuff that they had going on down there. So I spent a lot of time in the military. I was never a canine handler. I always like to point this out while I was in the Army, but that's when I started learning about the dogs. And so I came back from a deployment. My ex-wife was like, hey, got it. You're going to be gone from time to time. I want a dog here providing security while you're deployed, which is actually probably the primary reason that most people purchase dogs from us is the husbands will be, out of town frequently or traveling, and they want protection for their family while they're gone. And so started getting into it, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's been essentially what I've done full time for the last 12 years now.
Excellent. And guys, for you, those of you watching, make sure if you have any questions for Joel in particular, just hashtag K9, and we'll make sure we get those questions answered before the end of the podcast. I promise. So, Joel? What originally got you? Okay, so you had a fascination with dogs up front. What made you say, okay, I'm out of the military now. Now I want to start my own training company?
I often tell people, if you're trying to build something you're passionate about, find the thing you can't not do and pursue that. I tried doing other things other than training the dogs. First of all, when I got into it, I was a crazy mid-20 something young man when I first started doing this, and my mentor was a MACV-SOG veteran from Vietnam. And he just tortured us. It was like, at the time, it was a lot of fun because you're a mid-20 something guy, right? And you're like, this is an adventure. This is awesome. And you got a bunch of other guys around, and you're just getting tortured every time you go up and train. And all you want to do is do more of it. And so that caught my attention pretty quick. And then I would come in from work. I'd go do my Army job. I'd come home in the evening, and I'd grab dogs, and I'd just go out and spend a couple hours training every day. And it just really became an obsession right off the bat. The biggest thing to me was I never realized how well you could integrate dogs into everything that you do, and especially from a military perspective. And so I just became obsessed with, and being young and mid-20s and, hot-headed, I would get on they were message boards back then, right? They didn't have Facebook and all that.
Right, exactly.
And I'd be like, why aren't you special forces guys like jumping out of airplanes with your dogs? Look, we can rappel with the dogs, and we do this and we do that. And they were like, shut up, young boy. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then, of course, a couple of years later, every tier 1 unit in the world's, jumping dogs out of airplanes. But it just became an obsession with me right off the bat. And it was something that essentially I couldn't not do. And then long term, it just became something that I was able to, as I matured a little bit, I was like, hey, I can help people be secure. I can help these families. I can still do the fun stuff. We still get to, have the fun things when we want to. But for the most part, the goal now is to make sure that families are secure, that your children are safe, your wife is good when you have to travel. And should you need a partner when you're checking your house or doing something that's dangerous, you've got something that's going to be.
Yeah, and that's good advice. I mean, that's a good reason to get into it, right? The canine handlers that I've dealt with in the past, we'll call them the instructors, the trainers, whatever you want to call them. They immediately they want to, and especially as a dog owner, I want my dog to know how to bite somebody. I want them to know how to bite. That's just got to happen, right? But I say what's more important is to train your dog when not to bite. That's what I say. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we call that stability. And so I often tell people we spend about 3 to 4 times as much time doing stability work with the dogs as we do the bite work. You get into a lot of the sport world and even some of the law enforcement world, and they really avoid it because they think that the dogs won't bite as hard if you do the stability side of things. And there's definitely, there's a technique to balancing those two, right? You don't want so much stability that the dog won't bite, but you also don't want so much bite that the dog's now danger to your family or the people that you're moving around. And so that's really what we specialize in at Fortress K9 is dogs that are family dogs that can move in public, dogs that you can have guests over at your home, but that will also be fierce and aggressive when the time comes should they need to defend you.
And you're right. And the dog, that dog needs to be trained to know when to stop too. That's the other thing. You're going to want a dog that's going to be aggressive. And we'll talk about the 3 different types of dog personalities, not so much personalities, but training aspects that we had talked about in the green room earlier. And you can give me your opinions and what each of those aspects mean. But let's back up just a little bit since we're a preparedness oriented show for the most part. Let's talk about prepping with dogs. First of all, let's talk about a typical dog. Now, am I right to assume that most of your dogs that you train are Malinois, or do you also do Shepherds and stuff like that?
So the 3 dogs that we focus on are the Dutch Shepherd, the Belgian Malinois, and the German Shepherd. And we have working line German Shepherds, old school, straight back, square hip German Shepherds. And so when you're thinking about prepping for these dogs, there's a couple things you want to keep in mind. Most important thing, just like it is for our family, is feeding them, right? You got to make sure that your dog's got food. So there's always trade-offs on these things. If you have something like, I think I noticed a freeze dryer behind you there in the office. And so we've got 2 freeze dryers from, oh my goodness, I can't remember the name of the freeze dryer company right now.
Harvest Right, probably.
There you go, Harvest Right.
Hmm.
So what we do is as we're going through, we'll take like chicken with the bone in it. We'll take organs from like deer harvesting and stuff like that. When we go to the places to harvest our deer, we're like, I want all the organs, right? I want all the guts that you provide in there. We'll run it through an industrial grinder, put it into the freeze dryer and freeze dry that. That's wonderful. It's great, but there's only so much of that you can store.
Right.
Another great option is if you have chickens or if you can run rabbits. If you're going to feed a raw diet, where most raw diets go wrong, most of these like Farmer's Dog and places like this, number one, they're putting vegetables in there. Dogs don't eat vegetables as a general rule. They get all that from the gut of the animals that they eat. So they're eating the vegetables that are in the process of being digested by their prey animals. That's where ideally they get it from. So if you have chickens or rabbits, you can feed them the whole animal, feathers, fur, guts, everything. And that's their ideal diet. Now, of course, you have to be able to maintain those animals if you're going to do that. And then you have kind of like your beans and rice option for dogs is your kibble, right? And if you're going to store kibble a long time, so my ideal kibbles are the high fat, high protein kibbles. Those are, if you're going to feed kibble, those are better for the dogs. However, you go high fat, unless you can keep a semi-climate control, the fat will go rancid. And so if you're going to store long term, you want to look at something a little bit lower in the fat category. Try and keep it where it's in a semi, like a air conditioned type environment, whether that's, being stored in some kind of a basement or something like that. It'll store a lot longer there. Think of a warehouse, right? Again, it's not ideal for the dogs, but if you're looking at long-term storage for this kind of stuff. And then if you're hunting, if you're gathering, whatever you're doing to feed yourselves, all those guts, all those extras, all the stuff that you're not consuming, those are perfect for the dogs.
Sure.
And so as you're going through that kind of stuff, you don't want to waste any of that. That's all good for the dogs. The one thing I'll warn about, especially with the shepherd breeds, the German shepherds specifically, is you want to moderate how much they get at a time, because they can twist a gut. And so you don't want to dump the whole gut pile of like a cow or a moose or a caribou, especially your bigger animals. They will gorge themselves, and potentially they can twist the gut, and then that's lethal for the dogs. It will kill them. So we want to moderate how much we're giving them at a time.
So you're going to settle an argument here in the Robertucci house, and either I'm wrong or my wife is right. I don't know what the answer is, but you're going to settle this for me.
Okay.
So I say that you can give dogs raw chicken, complete 100% bones and all. It's where you run into the problem is when you start to process those bones and cook those bones and give it to the dogs. What say you solve this for the Robertucci household, Joel? Can you give dogs raw chicken bones?
So we've done this for years. Raw bones crush when the dogs bite them. Cooked bones, if they break, they splinter. And that applies whether it's a cow bone or a chicken bone. The reason people will say cow bones are safe for dogs is because most dogs aren't strong enough to break them even when they've been cooked, but they do splinter when they're cooked. If it's raw, they can eat any raw bone. So now some people are paranoid and they want to like pressure cook their chicken and stuff. I'm not a fan of cooking meat and food for the dogs. It's not like the end of the world or anything. It's just not ideal because that's not how they eat it in nature. But if you feed a dog a raw chicken, you can either do a full chicken every other day or a half a chicken every day. So when we had access to like the laying farms and they would lose their 10, 20 chickens a day, they'd throw them in a freezer for us. I would take a hatchet and a chopping block, take a frozen chicken and whack it, and it splits right in two, right? It's pretty crazy how it does it. And then you feed half a chicken every day to each dog. And yeah, they will they will eat the brains, they will eat the feet, they will eat. That is the perfect diet for the dogs. So if you have access to whole chickens or whole rabbits, now I don't recommend feeding your dogs these animals live, especially if you're keeping them, because then your dogs go, everything that I'm looking at is food. So you want to kill it first and then give it to the dogs. But raw chicken is an ideal diet for your dogs, and there's no danger of them getting splinters in those bones and it causing them problems.
So, from a professional aspect, now a professional dog handler and an instructor in that field, you would say at the end of the day, Pete was right about that argument. Then
Say that last part one more time.
that Pete, that I was correct about this argument in the household here, the Robertucci
I do
household.
not want to get into the middle of intermarital conflicts, but I will say raw chicken is safe for dogs to eat.
Perfect. And guys, we'll be periodically putting up that QR code to get all of Joel's contact information. His YouTube channel, Facebook channel, and websites and all that is on there, and it's also in the description of the podcast. So good to go to make sure that you stay in contact with him. Let's talk about back to prepping. So I was always a firm believer. Now I have a German Shepherd, and we actually had her stomach stapled, so it didn't twist, right? Because I'd had a problem with one of my Shepherds in the past, and he ended up passing away. So I didn't want to take that with this Shepherd because I paid a lot of money for her. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen to her. So that's a good process to do also. So there is a way to stop that bowel from actually twisting up and getting that gut twist. But I'm a firm believer that you 100%, you don't always have to have 100% protection dog. Now, the way I look at it, even my Chihuahua will make a racket when someone starts going by my house, right? So it's not all about the badass Malinois, German Shepherds, and stuff like that. Sometimes just something to wake you up at night could potentially help you. So I look at now. Look, my dogs they're family to me. I'm not gonna say they're not. I'll do anything for my dogs, but it's another tool. It's another tool in the toolbox, right? So any type of dog, any type of early warning system for you helps you in that security situation. So don't think you got to buy a $3,000 dog and get $5,000, $7,000 worth of training. If you could afford that, by all means, do it. But get something, right? It's like I always preach: get something. Something is always better than nothing.
Yeah. You can definitely go overboard with it, just like like anything, right? You can have the highest quality MVGs and the helmet and the Gucci vest and everything else. If it's not dirty and worn out, you're probably not doing it right. So when it comes to the dogs, people say, what's the max thing I can do? It's like, well, you want 20 dogs on ground. You want X number of perimeter dogs. You want X number in your house. Like, are you building an army or are you a family, though? Like let's talk about reality and living life. And, of course, it's fun to talk about, the max, security capabilities and all that kind of stuff. But really, you're absolutely right. It's, dogs offer a lot of capabilities that we can't cover down on, even with our electronics. So cameras are awesome. Cameras, if you can set up cameras around your house, that's great. But cameras have blind spots. Cameras can be defeated. Cameras can be tricked. You have a couple dogs outside that will bark when there's something out of the ordinary. Then at the very least, you got an alarm system out there, right? You can grab the NVGs or the thermal or whatever and check and see, is there something going on out there? Or is it just the dogs barking at a raccoon? And then you got your dogs inside, and whether that's just what I refer to lovingly as the yippy dogs, right? The little dogs that bark at everything. And I've got clients who are like, I want a protection dog, but is my little yippy dog going to be safe around them? And we train our dogs to be good with the smaller dogs, but those dogs are amazing alarm systems. Like, they're super sensitive to their environment. Anything out of the ordinary, they go crazy and start barking. And so that's a huge asset to people. Now, the only thing I kind of caveat that with, because most of us guys are like, some dude kicks in our door, like, we've got the 12 gauge shotgun, we got the AR-15, we got the Glock next to the bedstand. It's like, best day ever. Let's go kill some people. And our wives and our daughters, that's not what they're thinking, especially when we're not home, right? They want safe, secure, calm. And while even the hardest core wife might be like, yeah, I'll do it if I need to. But do you want your wife to have to actually kill a person? Because that will definitely change who you are for the rest of your life. There's something that happens inside you when you take a living, breathing human being and you turn them into a dead lump of flesh. And once it happens, it's done.
Yeah,
now,
there's no turning back from it.
Exactly. And the great thing about the dogs, because here's what happens. I've even been in situations where, I remember pulling into a parking lot one time. It was raining. My ex-wife was pregnant. She needed something from Walmart. Terrible day. Everybody's over at Walmart trying to get stuff. I pull into a parking place. Another dude was trying to get in, but he was coming the wrong way. Before I could even get out of my car, he's there at my door, like, "Hey, you took my parking place," right? We scuffle in the parking lot, and I have him on the ground, and I literally have my thumbs on his eyes. And I'm like, I could fucking kill this piece of shit right now, but I don't think I should.
Right.
I think that could go really bad for me, right? And then I let him up, and he runs away, and of course he got a couple hits in, and it's like, oh shit, now we got to deal with whatever happened. And it's like, do you really want to have to go there? In the moment, are you going to be confident enough to do what you need to do? Well, pulling a trigger is lethal force, no matter how you look at it. Sending a dog, it can be if it goes on for long enough and ends up in a certain situation. But 99% of the time, you're not killing anybody deploying a dog on them.
Right.
So even with your wives and your things like that, and the dog, once a dog's been trained to protect a family, it doesn't even need that command. Somebody kicks your front door in or something like that dog's going in, engaging. And so then you end the threat. You have the ability to create a massive amount of violence, but it's not lethal 90% of the time. And now it's over. And we didn't kill anybody. Right. And really, at the end of the day, we should be willing to, should we have to, but we should definitely not want to.
Yeah, well, even as a deterrent, right? Now, I'm walking my shepherds down the road. If there's somebody walking on the sidewalk, that person will typically do one of two things. He's a dog lover, will come right up to me, or they will go to the other side of the road because they are scared to death of dogs. Criminals always take the path of least resistance. If they go to my house and they have a German Shepherd drooling and slobbering on the window trying to get through that window, they're probably not going to take my house. It's probably not going to happen. Looks like I'm going to pop in a question here real quick. Guy wants to know, he was at Mountain Readiness. He got in the bite suit apparently last year and says, hey, are you guys doing that again?
We are definitely planning on bringing the bite equipment to Mountain Readiness. I already saw somebody over in the chat mention Zeke. We're definitely going to have Zeke with us. Zeke is one of my dogs that he's an awesome boy, and he's available for sale, and we need to find Zeke a home. So Zeke's going with me to all the events this spring. And if you want to get chewed on by Zeke, you can get in the suit. If you're too big for my suit, because they are custom built for me, I'm going to have sleeves available that you can just put over your arms and do the bite work that way. But yes, we will definitely have that stuff at Mountain Readiness. We're looking forward to being there. And you do have to sign a waiver. So, if you die, sorry, you said it was okay. But I haven't lost anybody yet in bite work. So we've got a good record.
Let's talk about Belgian Malinois. Now, my buddy Javi, my brother from another mother, he's got a Malinois. And that, let me tell you, people underestimate how much attention you have to give those dogs and how much actual motion they need. He lives in, he splits his time between here in Florida and northeastern Kentucky, or Tennessee rather. And he's got a ton of acreage up there. But I'm telling you, when that dog goes out in the morning, it is constantly roaming his property. He never ever stops. And they have to be, especially the Malinois breed, they have to get rid of that pent up energy, or what ends up happening with them if you just keep your Belgian Malinois in the house the whole damn day.
Well, so there's a couple of different perspectives to think about when you talk about Malinois and any of the high energy dogs, right? The Dutch Shepherds are kind of in that category a little bit as well. Number one is, what were they bred to do? And so a lot of the Malinois are very popular in the sport world. And because they do great, right? They do great in the sport world. They have amazing athletic capabilities. But a lot of the places are breeding them specifically to be so high energy that all they want to do, they're just constantly looking for something to do. So that's one aspect to think about. The other aspect is, you can condition a puppy to be calm. And that's actually the very first thing we teach all of our puppies to do, is get up on this table, lay down, and stay there. And it'll take us about a month or 6 weeks, and we'll have 6 puppies all laying on the tables, waiting their turn, and we're working them one at a time, going through our pups. But if you don't do that when they're young, it's very difficult. Once they hit about a year old, if their foundation hasn't been to learn to control and discipline themselves, they can be really high energy. Now, if you have a lot of property and things like that, it may not be that big a deal. But the other thing that we've done is we've crossed the Malinois, the Dutch Shepherd, and the German Shepherd together. We've had a specific breeding program that we've been running for about 12 years. It was running for about 80 years before us. It was handed off to us by my mentor. And it brings the level of the Malinois down just a little bit so that they're not so spun up they want to go crazy. So it depends on what you want to do with the dog, right? If you want to go do sports and you want to have fun with them that way, and I've got some clients that are like marathon runners and they're always out running. We have dogs that are more like, yeah, sure, this is a great dog for you. Go run a marathon every day. But if you don't want to do that, the German Shepherds or even some of our Mali and Dutch dogs are calm enough. Like right now, I've got a Dutch Shepherd laying in my living room right here beside me. He's been inside all day. Now, of course, if I say, hey, let's go outside and get busy, he gets all excited. Sure. He's like, oh my goodness, we're going to get to do something. But when it's time to just lay there and chill, he just lays there and chills.
Right, exactly.
And so you can have both, but you either want to get a puppy and start training it that way from the very beginning, which is why we created Canine Academy. So the people that got our dogs would have a way, they'd have an information to train the dogs the way that we train them. Or you find somebody who trains dogs to be that way, because a family protection dog has to be a family dog first, right? So It has to do the family thing, which is you have to be essentially a pet, a safe pet, a dog that's obedient. But then if we need you to protect us, then that's when you switch it on. And so we really work on that. Now, the sport line bred dogs, that's where getting a breeder that's breeding a dog to do the thing you want is really important. Because if you get somebody who's bred a Malinois to be or is working from sporting lines, those dogs, that what they want them to do is to be super excited about some kind of a toy, right? Some kind of tug, something like that. And you can use that to get them to do things really, really fast. And that can be really beneficial. But if you're not a person who's out doing things constantly and moving where that dog can get that energy out, like you said, then that could definitely be a problem. If you don't want a dog that's like that, and most of our clients don't, then you can look for somebody who's breeding specifically to have the dogs be a level down. Now, I always warn my clients, it's like, these are not like lap dogs. They're not like lay on a couch all day dogs. They still need discipline. They need consistency. Right. You have to handle the dog. It's an active process. But our dogs can lay there for a couple of days if you have to work on the computer for a few days. Of course, they're going to get a little bit stir crazy after a couple of days if you don't go do something with them. So they do need some kind of outlets. But a lot of times people think you have to go run these dogs. They're pinnacle athletes. Right. I literally have clients who are marathon runners, and their dogs will finish a marathon in Florida in the summer. They're tired for 20 minutes. They get a drink, and they're like, what are we doing now? Right. And it's like they will just get to whatever level you want. What I prefer to do is set up little obstacle courses in your yard and make them use their mind because if you build an obstacle course the way that we recommend it in Canine Academy, you can change it up constantly. And so it's like right as they figure out the one, you change it. And then 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day on an obstacle course, they're like, all right, I'm good. I've been mentally stimulated. I walked across these little, beams. I had to stand on this wobbly barrel. I had these various different things that I had to do. You worked your bond with the dog. You worked your obedience with the dog. You gave them some mental stimulation, and now they're like, okay, what are we doing for the rest of the day?
So look, you mentioned Canine Academy. Tell us about that. It's one of the
So when we started selling puppies, one of my concerns was I didn't want to be breeding Malinois puppies that just ended up in shelters.
Right.
So I built a 12 module course. We call it Canine Academy that takes you through. Holy crap! I got this puppy. What do I do with it? All the way up through off-lead obedience in 12 modules. And so we have a couple different options. You can purchase just portions of it if you want just basic obedience, or you can get the whole 12 modules that takes you through off-lead obedience. But the idea is if you have either a stubborn dog or a high-energy dog, Canine Academy is perfect. It works for Chihuahuas too, or little dogs, but most people that own those dogs don't want to put a prong collar on them, right?
No,
and,
exactly.
And so essentially our concept is we use praise. Our primary training method is positive reward through praise of the dog. And then, of course, with these dogs, I always say, if they see a squirrel and want to go chase it, no amount of trying to give them positive reinforcement with food or whatever is going to work. You have to have some kind of negative consequence when they want to go chase that squirrel. And so we use the prong collar as our correction, and then we use tons of praise and verbal, reinforcement when they're doing what we want them to do.
Now, I'm assuming when you talk about prong collar, it's the type that I would use on my dogs with the vibration, and then you could escalate if you need to. Or are you talking about an actual collar that goes around the neck with prongs, like I've seen some of the dogs have?
Yeah. So there's two. Essentially, you need some kind of correction collar. So there is what you're referring to sounds like the e-collar or an electronic
what I
collar.
have,
So it
yes.
provides some kind of stimulation. Now, I always recommend if you're going to use those collars, when you first get it, unbox it, charge it up, put it against your leg, start it off low, and start giving it pops. You'll find out about 10% of its max, you'll start feeling it. Literally, it feels like somebody's tapping you.
Yeah.
Right? And then you go up a little bit more, and it feels like maybe they're pinching you a little bit. And then you go up a little bit more, and then you start to get some level of actual like pain. And you can figure out where in there the dog needs their correction. The only downside to those is if you're not really good at operating that remote control, it becomes really difficult to give nuanced correction to the dog. So I actually use the Herm Sprenger prong collar. Can you pop that off? Let me see that. Thank you, baby. So this is a Herm Sprenger prong collar. So they make a couple different versions, but this one has a quick release snap. So you snap it together like that. It has a little cover so you can't accidentally push the button. And it has a single clip-in point right here. So I can use this and I can give gentle lead direction to a dog just like I would with reins on a horse.
Right.
If the dog is aggressive. So when you put this on your arm and you pop it, it's like a little pinch. And so I
almost the
can
same thing that the shock would do with the other collar.
Exactly. And I can give what I call a bump, which is just a light little, hey, pay attention. Because dogs are dogs. They get distracted by things, especially these higher energy dogs. And so I say seats, and they're like, look, a cat. And I'm like, hey, pay attention, seats. And I give them like a little bump, right? Or they're aggressive when they're not supposed to be, and they get whack, whack, whack. Knock that off. We don't be aggressive when we're not supposed to be. So the nice thing about the prong is I can go from gentle direction, just easy lead direction, to severe correction, all with just how I manage the lead. And it seems to be a lot easier for my clients to deal with. Where I mostly use the e-collars is for my small female clients that have like males that like they're like, and they give the hardest correction they can, and the male's like, yeah, whatever, that didn't mean anything to me.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, you would benefit from having an e-collar because you can give a harder correction that means something to the dog without having to have the physical strength to do it.
But it's interesting that you say that because I've probably only shocked my dog with the actual shock on the e-collar. I could maybe count it on my hand 5 times because I don't have to now. They know they want when I vibrate them, they know, okay, I need to snap to it. And one of the things that I learned was when I'm walking my dog, especially we talk about seeing squirrels and being predators and want to chase after the squirrel. I always put the collar on the lateral side of the dog away from me. And the reason I did that is because if I ever had to shock him or vibrate him, I didn't want him to think it was coming from me. I wanted him to think it was coming from an external source, and he got closer to me. Just a little bit of nuances that I've learned from some of the local trainers and stuff like that. And plus, one of the other things I did when I got the German Shepherd Remy was as soon as I got her home, me and her were over there at Bass Pro Shop. I would say 2 or 3 times a week. And I would I had her sitting in the playground in plot, sitting down and just letting her watch the kid, just watching her be stimulated, but knowing that I can't go do this because I haven't been told to go chase these kids around. Right. So that was one thing that really benefited me with Remy, the German Shepherd. Now Sawyer, on the other hand, he's an asshole. I really got to stay on task with him because he's the meaner of the two. He's the dumber of the two, but he just goes wacko sometimes, but he's definitely learning. So there's a lot of different aspects to the collar you're using and the e-collar and how you apply that kind of correction.
Exactly.
Is very important.
Yes. And I found the same thing with the prong. Once you've given a dog a couple of hard corrections with a prong collar, and it's mostly our males, right? The males at some point are going to challenge you. They're going to be like, yeah, I don't want to do what you're saying. And you're like, no, you need to do it. And they're like, maybe if I bite you, I won't have to do what you're saying. And then they challenge you and you have to give them a couple hard corrections. And then after that, they're like, okay, got it. Like, I understand my place now. And then you mostly, you rarely have to give a hard correction, what I would refer to as a hard correction, once they've gotten those first couple as a young dog, and they just realize, okay, you're serious. Like, I don't want to go there anymore. And it's mostly just communication. Like, people look at the prong and they're like, oh no, it's a spike collar, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I'm like, I rarely have to use it. When I was running my weekend training courses, I would have these women show up with their dogs, and I'm like, do one class with the prong collar, and if you don't like it, like, we're not the people for you. And
right.
They would realize, oh, you're not, it's not penetrating their neck. It's not, stabbing them in the neck when you pull it. It's communicating to the dog and giving them I want you to do good things and to get rewarded. But if I have to, then there's going to be a negative consequence.
Let me ask you this. Now, I was always under the mindset, or under the, I always thought that, listen, and I see this a lot with female people that have dogs, right? They want to tell the dog 5 times, stop, sit down, come here, stop. And when I first had my dogs, I was always a stimulus person, a touch person, because I noticed as dogs correct themselves within the pack, it's not always just a bark or everything. It's usually a touch. They set it down.
Exactly.
They understand. So these are one of the things that I incorporated into my training, especially at the very beginning. Sawyer was easy because he was food driven. Remy, on the other hand, I had to give a command and maybe even give her a stimulus, a little touch on the back, and say, "Okay, look, I'm telling you what to do now. Let's do this." So that's another argument me and the wife have is, listen, stop telling that dog 35 times. Make that dog obey you, and whatever it takes to make it happen. I'm not saying you have to beat the dog, but it needs to. It needs to respect your authority, your pack. You need to, you always hear you have to be the pack leader. And I don't know how much truth there is behind that. Maybe you can, is that factual or?
Well, so there's 2 things there, right? The first one is we actually have a statement in our training philosophy that says 1 direction, 1 correction. And the idea there is I give a command 1 time and I expect you to obey it. If you obey it, praise. If you don't obey it, correction. And my philosophy on it is, however consistent and disciplined you are is how consistent and disciplined your dog will be.
100%.
So if you have to tell your dog 5 times before you give a correction, then expect that you're going to have to tell your dog 5 times before they do it.
Right.
Because whenever the correction comes, whatever the consistency of that correction is, they go, okay, now they're actually going to make me do it. So I'll do it now. And I'm not a fan of like telling a child to do something and then counting to 3 or 5 or whatever.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like telling a kindergarten, you better sit down, I'm counting to 3 or something bad's going to happen.
Exactly.
No.
Stay at 1 time. And then of course, the correction might be for a dog. It might be a light correction if you've been good, but you're just having an off day. Or if you've done it 5 times in a row and you're just pushing your boundaries. Because what they really want is they want to know where the boundaries are.
Yeah, they test it.
And the more disciplined you are with those boundaries, the more confident the dog will be. The more you let those boundaries be gray areas, they're like, well, can I get away with it this time or am I going to get in trouble? And you actually see them starting to act less confident and more almost like schizophrenic, especially with the higher energy dogs. Because they're like, oh no, am I going to get caught this time? Like maybe I can get away with it. And it's like, no, just be consistent and disciplined all the time, and your dog will be consistent and disciplined.
Exactly. And the argument I always had was, if my dog is running into traffic, I know it's going to run into the middle of the road, and I need to stop it. I need to be able to give a command, and that dog go to sit right away, or go to spot, or go to plots immediately right now, because I don't want him. I don't need to say it 3 times. He's going to go get hit by a car. Right. So that's the way I equated the importance of that. Listen, a command, do it now, praise. And so, again, Sawyer was easy. My praise for Sawyer was I give him a treat and he's happier than a pig in shit, right? Yeah. Remy, on the other hand, she's finicky, but it's the first female dog I've ever tried to train also. So that I haven't, Joel, I don't know if you know this about me, I haven't been able to train any females in my life, no matter dog, human, nothing. It just doesn't work for me.
I like to feel like I trained my wife well, but I don't think she would agree with that. She's over there giving me like smirks right now.
No, they learn. They learn that if they let us believe that, they win on all aspects of it. So it looks like Jay over on YouTube has a question for you. Let's read this. This is, I had had 3 black and tan German Shepherds. Some I've paid a ton of money for. All end up either joint issues or hip dysplasia. Do Dutch German Shepherds have these same type of issues? Thanks for the
Okay,
question.
so I'm going to say something that people that are new to the dog world might find very controversial. But my opinion is the AKC, the American Kennel Club, has destroyed every breed they've ever registered.
Agreed.
And I would just recommend, if you want to see what I'm talking about, do a Google search, type in any breed you want, and then 1920, like the year 1920, and click on images and look at what that breed looked like in the 1920s, and then type in a Google search for the same breed, Best of Show 2024, and that's the AKC's Best of Show, and see what that breed looks like now, and then ask yourself, do I want a dog that's been registered by the AKC? And I think 99% of the time you'll go, no, I don't want that. So the German Shepherds were brought over from Germany, obviously, after World War II. They were the pinnacle dog of the dog world at that time because the Germans were amazing. The Germans were not done building the German Shepherd in World War II. If you actually look at 1940s images of German Shepherds, they look more like Malinois than our modern-day German Shepherds. And they were still crossing Malinois and Dutch Shepherd into them, which is why we cross Malinois and Dutch Shepherd into our German Shepherds. But finding a healthy line of German Shepherds is extremely difficult. The Dutch Shepherds typically don't have that issue. The Malinois typically don't have that issue, although the Malleys have been registered by the AKC for longer than the Dutch Shepherds. Dutch Shepherds are a little bit harder to register because in the early 1900s, they almost lost the breed. So what they did was they brought in a bunch of Malinois into Holland to cross into the Dutch Shepherd, which is why they're so similar now. And that saved the breed. But you have, so generally they're healthier. But if you have working line German Shepherds, which my definition of working line German Shepherds is whatever breeds were used to create that breed in the first place, have to periodically be crossed back into that breed. Otherwise, you end up with genetics that are so in line, it's essentially like inbreeding.
That's
which
interesting.
Is why the practices of the AKC tend to destroy all their breeds, because what they essentially do is they funnel all the genetics into such a narrow pathway that you end up with all these genetic problems.
Gotcha.
And so if you find breeders who are breeding for working ability, which generally what they're doing is they're crossing lines periodically, you get a thing called hybrid vigor. So almost all genetic problems are double recessives. So if there's a hip problem in a dog, it only shows itself in the breed if it's got both recessives present. If either one is a dominant, it never presents itself physically.
Gotcha.
So you can have a dominant recessive, and the dominant is what shows, and then the dog's hips are healthy. You could have two dominants, and you're good. So when you crossbreed, the hybrid vigor, what it does is it goes, the best genetics from both sides end up being what's dominant.
Interesting.
And so you it's not 100% that you'll have zero health problems genetically, but it significantly reduces. We have a genetic health guarantee on our dogs. I've never had to use it because all of our dogs' genetics are healthy. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that I'll never have to in the future. There's always the possibility you get a freak, genetic combination. But for the most part, the reason that most of the German Shepherds have those issues is because of the AKC breeding practices that have just done so much damage to the German Shepherds. And
let's talk about let's get back to working dogs and how they kind of they apply to our prepping community, preparedness community. The way I look at it, there's three type of we'll just call them working dogs, right? We'll call the general protection dog, the one for the family, and then we'll call the apprehensions dogs, and those are the ones that usually work for the police department and stuff like that. And then we have the military dogs, which is a completely different category that we don't even really need to talk about because we're not in that space right now. So could you just basically just kind of give a breakdown of the difference between, like, a family protection dog and an apprehension canine that would work at the police force? And the training is different, right? So just speak to that.
Yeah, so my philosophy is most of the sports, so whether that's IPO, Schutzen, KNPV, these were sports developed in different countries. And what they were doing was they were trying to develop a test to be able to say, hey, this dog is ready to go work the street, right? This dog is ready to go be a working dog on the street. And it was a test for law enforcement dogs. And so think about how a law enforcement canine is used. 99% of the time, a law enforcement dog is deployed on somebody is because the person is running away or because they're hiding, right? So I remember we would get, when I was a sheriff deputy, we would get a call for active robbery in progress. And everybody lights the sirens. They get to the location. We cordon the area. You know, we try and block off all the roads so we can see if somebody tries to run across the road. And then we bring out the canine unit. And the canine unit searches. You know, they search the buildings, they search the fields, whatever. That person is hiding. They don't want to fight. The person is running. They don't want to fight. So the vast majority of the time the dogs are being deployed on these people is, like you said, for apprehension. And the idea, so there's a couple of things that they do for apprehension dogs. One is they want the dog to bite and drive into the bite. Now, why would you want a dog to drive into the bite? So the pressure that they're producing, whether it's a forearm, a bicep, a tricep, wherever they're targeting, the pressure is painful. Pressure on muscles hurts. So most people, they don't want to fight, right? They're like, ow, that hurts. Okay, make it stop. Please make it stop. If a dog is driving into the bite, while they have the pressure and there's the bruising, they're not ripping their canine.
Yeah, so they're not engaging with the canine, making huge avulsions.
So the apprehension dogs. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so just to your point, that they're actually trained to not bite with their canines, and they're basically trained to hold the suspect there until the handler gets there, not so much tear them apart. Now, not to say that hasn't happened in law enforcement, it certainly has.
It does occasionally.
But they're actually trained to lock on and then hold on with the rear part of their jaw, as opposed to ripping them apart with their canines.
Correct. So law enforcement agencies were getting sued a lot the last 20 or 30 years. So what they wanted was, they wanted dogs that minimize damage, maximize pain. But then if you, as a canine officer, if you deploy your dog, you have to go put hands on with that person. So you're going to put handcuffs on that person, which means you're going in, you're going to call your dog off. They have better and worse success in that, depending on the training that they've done. Sometimes their dogs turn and bite their own handlers. But that's the idea, right? You call your dog off, you put handcuffs on the bad guy, you take him to jail. You don't want him saying, you know, I curled in the fetal position and he ripped my forearms off and I'm going to have permanent injuries. That's the apprehension side of things. Now, the downside of the apprehension trained dogs is if somebody does want to fight and they pull out a knife and start stabbing that dog, and that dog's been trained to be hit by a stick. Yep. You see the videos where the people are using the sticks and they're hitting the dogs. They're specifically training the dogs not to retarget, even if they're being struck by a weapon, right? And there's benefit to that if you don't want to cause serious injury. You're trying to avoid, lawsuits. And if the officer should be theoretically right behind the dog, right? Even if the person ran, they're only going to go so far before the dog catches them. The officer should be there within 30 seconds or so. And so hopefully that person doesn't draw a knife and start stabbing your dog. If you as an individual have a dog with you and somebody decides, I'm going to target that person, whether that's you have a dog at your home and they're scouting you for a home invasion, whether that's you walking in a parking lot late at night and you're moving to your car and somebody says, I want to kidnap that female. If she has what is an obviously trained dog with her and they say, yes, I'm going to attack that person, the level of threat that person is way higher than the level of threat that most police ever deploy their dogs.
100%. So how does the training apply to each of those? Like, obviously you do working dogs for the law enforcement and military side. How does your training differ from a home protection dog? Then tell me maybe one or two of the different aspects of the training.
So the main things that we do that are different is we train our dogs to retarget. So when we're training the dogs, we call it reverse. So if they bite my left arm and I strike them with the right arm, I want them to release their grip on my left arm and hit my right arm.
Interesting.
So that's number one, is they're retargeting whatever the highest threat is to the dog should be what the dog's targeting.
Interesting.
So, and sometimes that's just a strike. Sometimes it's a weapon, right? So we'll use training knives and we'll come in and try and stab the dog in the ribs and we want them to turn and bite our forearm and thrash. And then when they start to thrash on our forearm, we release the knife. Because anything in your hand can increase the threat of your strike, right? Even if I take my cell phone, if I'm holding my cell phone in my hand and I strike you on the head with it, that's going to do more damage. It's going to break my phone, but it's going to do more damage than if I'm just like hitting you with my fist on the head. So anything I add into my hands increases the damage that I can do with that hand. So if I'm striking a dog, I want them to retarget. The other thing I want my dogs to do is they thrash or pull away. So my dogs don't drive into the bite. Okay, so what I want, here's the simple version. I want maximum violence for the shortest period of time.
So like we train with firearms and anything else, violence of action, right? You want your dog with the violence of action type of technique.
Exactly. I want the person to immediately go, this was a bad decision. I want it to end. And then I want it to end. I don't want to kill anybody. If we have to, we have to. But I don't want to kill a person if I don't have to. I don't want to cause more damage than I have to. You started this problem, but as soon as you're ready for it to be over, we'll call it off. And then, every situation is different. If they're in your home, you might want to maintain control over them till the police arrive and take them away. If you're in a parking lot, you may just want to get to your car and get away. So the thing that bugs me about most people in the self-defense world in general is they have this idea that this is how it's always going to be. Use this grip and with your pistol and you'll always hit your target. But what if I'm seatbelted in to my car and the person's shooting at me from behind? Like that grip doesn't work anymore in that situation, right? There's never a one thing fits all your problems.
Yeah, you would never use a flat-headed screwdriver for something you need a Phillips for. I mean, there's a lot of different tools, a lot of different mythology behind it all. Let's look at some of these questions here. Susan asks, she has a half shepherd, half lab, which is a complete idiot. Or will she be or he be susceptible to a stomach twist?
So the twisted gut in general, so the way a dog's stomach works in them, and this is the larger chested dogs tend to have this more than the smaller chested dogs, is the stomach is attached at either end by two tendons. And it kind of hangs between those. When it's empty, it's pretty much taut. Right. When it's full, it kind of hangs like a hammock. Think of it like a hammock. So if the dog has to fight and thrash and their whole body's moving, that tends to have this swinging effect that can twist on itself. Or if they're up and they fall off like an obstacle or something like that, that can be a problem. So in general, here's my philosophy, is you can do the stapling thing, right? And that does solve the problem. But it's a surgery on the dog that maybe, is worth it. Maybe is trauma that the dog doesn't need. It's all really up to your decision. But if you're working a dog, let's say, your dog goes with you and does everything that you do all day long. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to give my dog a little bit of water, just a couple laps at the water to wet their mouth. And if it's hot, like in Florida, I'm going to give them more water through the day. I'm going to give a little bit of food just so they don't get bile in their stomach and feel like they got to vomit. And then we're going to go do our patrol for the day. Whatever it is we're doing, right? We're going to go do our day. And then at the end of the day, that's when I'm going to give them their big feeding, their big water, make sure that they have enough time to go use the bathroom before bedtime, and then we wake up and start.
When they're settling down for the night, they're not jumping around, they're not so active, they can settle down, digest their food, not worry about getting all that stuff bound up in there, right?
Exactly.
That makes sense to me.
Exactly. So it's kind of like an end of the shift. If your life is more calm, then feed them in the morning. Go for a nice calm walk, no big deal. It's just that real heavy duty activity. You don't want them to have a full stomach while they're doing that heavy duty activity.
100%. I'm going to tell you from my aspect of this, but I'm no professional. I would say the female is more difficult from my end because I don't know what I'm doing probably, but you go ahead. You're the expert, Joel. What do you think? Male versus female training?
So my experience is there's a couple things that differ significantly between the genders. One is female dogs will tend to bond to the male humans closer than the males do. Although I've had plenty of male dogs that are great. Male dogs tend to bond closer to female humans. Now, the downside of that is the male dogs typically require harder corrections. And so for a female, that might be a problem. The females, there's a couple of variations. One is if they're intact, meaning they haven't been spayed, they are going to have a cycle. Now, the dogs have a 6-month cycle, not a 1-month cycle. When they go through their cycle, you're like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why are you like losing it? And then they start to bleed, and you're like, oh yeah, that was your cycle.
Yeah, I was stuck in an RV from Wisconsin down to Florida, and Remy decided it was going to be that time. And let me tell you what, forget the mess, the smell that comes out of these dogs, forget it. It'll gag a maggot. So yeah, we were stuck for 20 hours in an RV.
They can.
Yes. So
yeah, and some females are cleaner. You know, some females clean up after themselves. Some females bleed everywhere. And so I do appreciate the people that want to spay their dogs. I do think overall you get a longer working life out of the dogs if they're intact, because it does affect their hormone structures in their body and everything when they're spayed. But that's definitely something to consider. In general, I keep the training of the dogs as simple as I can keep it. And I think most people, like literally I have clients that are like, it can't be that simple. And I'm like, let me show you. And then I show them and they're like, holy crap, how have I been complicating this my whole life? So whatever you praise, you will get more of. Whatever you correct, you will get less of. And then your discipline and your consistency is really the key in the dogs. And now the nuances is communicating what you want them to do. Sometimes people think they're communicating one thing and they're actually communicating something else. So I have clients that I try and, they'll be like, hey, my dog's doing this. What do I do? And I'm like, that could be 4 different things. Send me a video of the dog doing it and let me see what's going on. And then they send me the video and I'm like, oh, that's not any of the stuff you thought it was. That's this. Do this one little thing.
Right, exactly. And one of the crux is in all this is and you talked about consistency. Now, the problem with what we found early on was having your spouse as consistent as you are also. That was always the hardest part. And the men typically will drive it home, can train with the dog. Then they go to work and you're like, my wife can't control the dogs. And I'm like, well, did you do this, do that? Well, no. I go, that's not the way it works. You have to stay consistent. The same way I'm doing it, you have to do it. Because as soon as I leave the house, they're going to think they rule the roost, and that's it. Caleb has a question here, and this might go on to keeping it simple, right? Do you train your dogs around loud noises like firearms and fireworks and stuff like that?
Yeah, so you want to expose your dog to those things as early as possible. A lot of the way the reasons dogs react to different things is because a lack of exposure, right? So we often think of, we see the dog react to something and we're like, why is that dog afraid of a trash can? And like if you live in a neighborhood and you just got a new dog and you walk it down the street the first day, everything's normal, we come home. We walk down the street the second day, everything's normal, we come home. All of a sudden on the third day, the dog walks outside and is like, what the hell? What are all those things out there on the road? They weren't there the last 2 days. And we go, the dog's afraid of trash cans.
Right.
Dogs don't have a concept of trash. Right. Dogs don't have a concept really of cars, right? So when you're in a parking lot and a car pulls around to go down the aisle, you as a human know this is how cars drive. The dogs only learn that by being exposed to it. So they have to go into a parking lot and watch enough cars drive by that they're like, okay, that thing's not going to try and run me over. They have to go out on the sidewalk and see the trash cans show up enough times that they're like, oh, every once in a while these things show up. They just sit there. They don't do anything. No big deal. And so the more we can expose our dogs to various different things, the better, especially with loud noises. One of the things we do with our puppies when they're born is we have a CD that plays all kinds of different sounds. Everything from like being right up close to a train to being in a crowded room to fireworks to gunfire, vacuum cleaners. It has all these different sounds that it plays. And we just play this on like max volume for the pups. And then we found that goes a long way to helping with a lot of these things. Sure. And then we have a shooting range right next to where the dogs are tethered at. And so periodically people come out and they shoot, and then we work the dogs around the shooting. The one thing I will warn you about is, and people will sometimes want to take the dogs out to the range, especially if they're shooting like rifles and things like that. And they're wearing hearing protection, the human is, and they've got their dog beside them with no hearing protection on, and they're like, come on, yeah, we're going to get some exposure today. And the dog's like, holy crap, my eardrums are being blown out. So if you're wearing hearing protection, make sure your dog is wearing hearing protection too. If you don't want to do the hearing protection on the dog, be far enough away that you don't need it.
Yeah, and that's what I would do with my with Sawyer. Is I would take him. I got a gun range right down the road here. I'd walk him there, stay on the other side of the parking lot, and then just work our normal drills, our spot drills, or get him between my legs, and we'd walk or do whatever, just whatever drills we were doing. And he seemed to acclimate very, very well to that. You were talking about the 3 different breeds of dogs that you deal with. Caleb said, "Is there a different life expectancies between those three breeds?"
So in our lines, we have about the same across all of them. Typically, your shepherd breeds are going to live about 12 years, 14 if you really take care of their health. So that's your life expectancy. Essentially, from the time they're done training, expect about a decade. And then I always tell people, if you want a dog, if you want constant coverage of a dog that's ready to protect, about the time your dog's 8 years old is when you want to start looking at getting a replacement puppy. Oh. And people will ask me sometimes, like, well, do I get a puppy or a young dog and bring it in before my dog dies, or do I wait until after my dog dies? And my recommendation is, if the dog you have is you're like, me and this dog are in sync. This dog does everything I want it to do. It's like my perfect life companion. Then you want to bring the new dog in before that dog dies, because that dog is going to teach your new dog most of those things. Yeah. And it's going to help accelerate that training process. If you're like, my dog is an asshole, he has all these problems that I can't stand, I just want a new dog so I don't have to deal with all these problems that probably I created as the handler, right? Then wait for your dog to die, bring the fresh dog in, and start over.
Gotcha. Makes 100% sense to me. Joel, I appreciate having you on here. Tell the folks a little bit about where they can find you and website. I'll throw this QR code up again, but tell them about the different, sorry, Russ, I know you were probably already on that, brother. I was doing your job. Sorry. He's flipping me off in the background over there. Tell them where they can find you, your websites, and of course, your next appearance.
Absolutely. Well, we're really excited. We're going to be at Mountain Readiness in May, and that's coming up here real shortly. We have one other event just before that. That's a smaller event. And then we're actually going to be at the Overlander event in Flagstaff, Arizona this year. So that's going to be pretty exciting. That's our first time going out there. But Mountain Readiness is going to be super exciting. We're going to be bringing our bite suit, and we're going to be bringing our sleeves, and we're going to be bringing our dogs. And hopefully we'll have tons of waivers so that people can sign their life away and get chewed on by one of our dogs if they want to. If you want to find out more information about us, our website is Fortress Canine. That's where we sell our puppies and our trained protection dogs. And then if you already have a dog, or if you're looking to buy a puppy and do the training yourself, we have a website, k9academy.us. That's the letter K, the number 9, academy.us. And that takes you through the same training process that we take all of our pups and all of the training that we do from our puppies all the way up to when they're ready to go home, minus the bite work. I don't have the bite work in there.
It's kind of tough to do.
But we do have some of the advanced courses. Like we have an initial tracking course if you're interested in getting into like the search and rescue type tracking with the dogs. There's some basic stuff like that in there as well. And then we're on almost all the social media platforms at Fortress Canine. Facebook's a little weird. I got hacked a couple years back. So we're at Fortress Canine Kennels on Facebook, but you can find us at Fortress Canine just about anywhere you go. And then, of course, fortresscanine.com is our website.
Excellent. Thanks, brother, for bringing on. We really appreciate you. I'm glad I finally got to wrangle you up and get you on the podcast. Because like I said, I love dogs. They're part of the family. And if anybody's read any of my books, they know like the dogs are the main characters, right? So I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you at Mountain Readiness. And thanks, brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have a great night. But a pleasure, everybody. Bye.
Wow, what a guy, right? Everyone's over there. They're all trying to bail. We're not done yet over on Kick. Just hang tight. We're not done yet. I haven't even brought the main man, the man behind the scenes, the man that makes all of this stuff happen. I haven't even brought him in to talk to you guys yet, so don't leave. Uh, uh, but first of all, Russ, what's going on, brother?
Hey, man, what a great show. What a great show.
Look,
That
man,
was
I love having experts on there. I love picking their mind, right? Uh, I love just trying to get as many experts on, and especially guys in the preparedness, and especially guys that are in the preparedness, guys that are supporting mountain readiness, right, by going to being a vendor over there. So yeah, absolutely. But yeah, he was top notch, wasn't he?
absolutely, and he solidified a lot of different points that you and I have talked about in regards to training canine and training dogs. And yes, our dogs, they're part of our family, but we try to train them. And the getting the spouses on board to continuing to do the same type of training is tough. But I mean,
Yeah,
they have us trained, but we can't get them to help train the dogs.
exactly, and
I mean,
that's one of the
it is
hardest
what
parts,
it
right?
is.
It's
We love our
ridiculous.
spouses, don't get us wrong.
Russ,
Um,
I kind of jumped the gun a little bit because I wanted to get Joel on so quick, but there is a little bit of an issue that I had, and I'm gonna pop up a new screen here real quick. Let's see what
absolutely.
this does. I want to do this right here, and
There
this is something that's been going around X, and something that I've been warning everybody about. And I know we're getting off track here a little bit just because I went out of order, but these leftists are basically calling out their political opponents and telling their supporters to kill their political opponents. There's an article written by Nicholas Decker from Homo economicus, and that's a real thing. I didn't make it up, right? He says that violence only makes sense as part of a coordinated strategy. This is why protests are important. So start off with protests and then escalate the violence into and to include killing your political adversaries. Now, I should mention, according to X, that Nicholas Decker has raised over $174,000 for his trans youth agency, whose funding was recently cut by Donald Trump and the Doge administration, right? You can read his entire essay. It can be found on the internet. I'm not going to share it with you, but just some snippets. One thing he says is that this evil will not pass. And speaking of the current administration, this evil will not pass without blood, sweat, toil, and tears. So harden your hearts, talking to his supporters, his elk, his people, his tribe, the leftist psychopaths. Harden your hearts and prepare to die. Now, Russ, how many times are they going to have to say things like this before, first of all, our government labels them for what they are, domestic terrorists? And when are we, as normal citizens, as taxpayers, as people that just want to do the right thing, when are we going to become proactive in protecting ourselves and our families, and also realizing that this is an internal threat to our safety? When, how much do we have to ignore this?
yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Um, I agree that our government needs to start cracking down on people like this. They've already started cracking down a little bit on the the damages on Teslas and stuff like that, which I 100% agree with. They are already deporting people that are not into the country illegally. They were just fine, um, imprisoning J6ers, but for nowhere near the violence that they're calling for.
Right, and the fact, and also just saying that the biggest internal threat to the democracy. First of all, we're a constitutional republic. We've gone over that a million times. But what their words are is the biggest threat to democracy is MAGA and white supremacy and basically white straight Christian males. Right, that's their biggest threat. It's not true. It's propaganda. Okay, but the more times you say that, the more times NBC, CNN, MSNBC says that, the more numb people become to it, and they're doing exactly what armies have done for millions or for thousands of years. Is you desensitize your population, you look at your adversaries as less than human, and then it's okay to kill them. This is what's happening right now, and this is what we need to wake up and get our heads out of our ass. All right.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm posting a comment over in the lower third.
Okay.
The one, I think the last part of that question that you asked is, when are we going to start stepping up? I think we will start stepping up once the violence hits and we start seeing more of that level of violence. And then and especially when it starts directly affecting us as an individual.
Yeah, I would agree with that aspect of it, Russ. But you look at 2020, the mostly peaceful protest. There was so much violence going on right there. There were people being killed that they're not reporting on, and the legacy media is not going to tell you what's actually going on. They're not. Look how long they held the manifesto from the Tennessee trans terrorist.
Yeah,
they held it for years because they don't want the public to understand who the mentally ill enemy is. And I'm not saying all trans people are terrorists. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if they plant the seed in someone who may have a mental compromise, that sooner or later it's going to come to fruition, and they're going to act upon what they've been hearing over and over and over again. So that's problematic. I don't know, Russ. I don't know the answer. All I can say is get trained. And I'm very, very interested to see the background. I don't want to get in any speculation, but I want to be very interested to see what the background is on this FSU shooter, if they allow. Now, I knew that he was a white male as soon as they were so quick to put his name out there. I knew that was. If it was anybody else, they would. If it was a Muslim, if it was a trans terrorist, if it was a African American or minority, they never would have let his name out.
Yeah, well, and you talk about the narratives. Going back down to the Texas stabbing, when the high school kid got stabbed, that liberal judge dropped his bond down to $200,000. And the GoFundMe was well over that. And the family went out and bought a house or rented a house or whatever in a freaking nice neighborhood with
allegedly,
along with a brand new vehicle, allegedly. But that part is alleged. The part that was not alleged is the fact that the bond was dropped. But that didn't happen to Kyle Rittenhouse when he was under indictment. He stayed in jail. It didn't happen with the J6ers. Right. But it doesn't fit the narrative that the mainstream media wants to have happen. And I mean, I think mainstream media, MSNBC, CBS, NBC, and heck, even Fox, because they're considered mainstream as well, they need to just go to hell away.
Yeah, it's all of them. And look, that's why more people are moving to these type of platforms to get an unbiased or a no bullshit approach on what's actually going on in the world. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not biased, or certain things that I am 100% biased about, but some stereotypes reign true. I don't know what to tell you. There's nothing more I can say about that. But let's back off of that because I get riled up about that. I want to talk about my governor. I want to talk about the governor of the great. Go ahead. You got something to say?
Griff, fornicate thyself.
Yeah, I know. I see him over there yakking.
Yeah,
I was ignoring him. I want to talk about first two things before I get off on this tangent.
Oh,
only going to be available at Mountain Readiness, and these are jam up little 30-ounce koozie deals. Not koozies, but tumblers. So only available at Mountain Readiness. It's going to be a one-time thing. Maybe, I don't know. We'll keep going. And then I have to ask you, red shirt, you like it or not? Because there's talk up in the air. Melissa wasn't sure. I'm not sure. Like the red shirt. Tell us in the comments, whatever. But back to the great state, the free state of Florida, and our great governor, Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis called for a law against China owning any land in Florida near or around any critical infrastructure, including agriculture facilities and or fields. Now, Should this be a federal law?
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's my take on it. I think immediately, Don Trump, Don, because I know you watch, right? I think we should immediately use eminent domain to take all the land owned by the Chinese, the CCP, under the National Security Act right now, today, make it happen. There's no reason why the CCP should hold land next to a military base.
Absolutely correct.
There's no reason the CCP should hold farmland that's critical to feeding our populace. Immediately eminent domain it, give them a fair price for their money, kick their asses out of here, and then we'll start talking about if tariffs are working or not, because that's going to be the kick in the ass.
Give them the same fair price that they have given historically to Americans when they do eminent domain.
Yeah, and as an American, go to China and see if you can buy a rice field. Go to China as an American and see if you can go buy a rice field. Ain't happening, okay? You'll work for them. And this is why so many illegal immigrants over the last 4 years have been from China. People saying, yes, there are military-aged males that came over the border illegally, but 90% of the people that came through the southern border and the northern border, thanks to Canada, allowing them into their country, are these farm workers, are cheap labor that they know they can go either manufacture something or distribute something or farm something for pennies on the dollar, because now they've got them over here illegally and they're going to treat them just like as if they were in communist China.
So, I mean, and I think we talked about it last week. You know, China came out with the edict that if you are a Chinese national and no matter where you're at, you are responsible for helping gather intelligence.
Yeah, we talked about that last week with the students going to the university. There was a mandate from the Chinese government. Listen, you can go, but you right now are going to work for the government. 6-month subscriber bullshit. Red shirt, brown pants. No, not brown pants. I do all my podcasts in my underwear, bull. So that's the way it works. Larry likes the red shirt. My boyfriend Kelly says the red shirt rocks. I love that.
Teresa liked it.
All right, red shirt stays then. I won't give it away.
It brings out the bloodshot in your eyes. I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said it brings out the color in your eyes.
That's awesome.
I was paraphrasing that because it was just there. It gives Eden Army 1 says the red gives your cheeks a healthy glow.
Exactly. See, that's not the healthy glow. That's the high blood pressure.
Yeah. So, you're talking about governors, and as far as governors go, I would definitely rank your governor as in the top 5, if not the top 2, possibly number 1. But then you have the bottom of the barrel with Newsom, and he's sitting there getting ready to try to sue this Trump administration over these tariffs. And you know what? Let him. It's not going to work unless he tries to get that freaking corrupt judge that Trump's been dealing with, that's trying to get ready to try him for contempt of court.
Yeah, you know what? Charge him for contempt of court. It doesn't matter. He's going to pardon himself. You can't. First of all, you can't charge him. It'll pardon all of his. Look, Biden said what we could do. We can not only pardon you for crimes that you've been committed, but for crimes you may have committed in the past. F you, judge. Don't care. Don't like you. It's not going to work. I say, and here's the thing, Russ. If the Democrats, instead of attacking and stopping all of this policy, if they would come up with a better plan. Look, I'm going to say right now, Pete's going to be on board. If you come up with a better plan, I'm on board. Okay. Contrary to popular belief, I don't bleed red or blue. I bleed red, white, and blue. Right. So if it's better for the country, that's it. Now, I'll admit I voted for Obama on the first term. His first term, I voted for him because I thought, okay, this is going to be a fresh guy. It's going to bring some change to the political environment. No, he made things a million times worse. My bad. I gave him a shot, though. So, look, Democrats, come up with a better policy. Don't give a shit. I'll go with you.
Now,
Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to put that one over there. So, that made me lose my train of thought. Damn, what was I going with that?
Let's see what Patrick says here. Patrick says another super well-known thing the Chinese are doing in our country is something like 40% of the legal weed business in the country. Who knows how much of the illegal weed? Yeah, they are definitely, and that was all part of seizing a lot of that agricultural land and stuff like that. While the Mexicans and stuff like that will plant fields in our national forests and stuff like that, or just try to import it in illegally, the Chinese are actually starting businesses, and we're allowing them to do that. I don't get it. I mean, I do get it, and I understand why our government did that, especially with the last administration, but it just doesn't make any sense from a national security standpoint,
Really,
Patrick.
and it's kind of speaking on national security. This is going. We'll go over talk about the Pentagon for a minute. You posted something in our notes over here talking about how the Pentagon has suspended top aides.
Yeah, and these are some of the aides that were actually on Hegseth's actual staff. Look, this administration is not putting up with leakers. All right, they're not putting. If you leak something to the media, then you're gone. It's done. We're not playing that game. And because here's the deal: an anonymous source said in this department, I could say anything. Russ, an anonymous source told me that you were once a porn star. I'm not telling you who it was because of my press credentials. I can't tell you, but look, an anonymous. So that doesn't make it true.
It doesn't.
Right. It just doesn't. It doesn't doesn't hold water.
I think what they're doing is what they need to be doing as far as getting rid of the folks like that. Just like they got rid of the commander up in Greenland. And the next one that's on the hit parade needs to be that commander down in New Mexico.
Yep.
Same situation. I'm not going to do this because of my political blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? I'm sorry. And for those veterans over there in the in chat can probably attest to it. It didn't matter who the hell we had in as the president of the United States or who was the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of the Air Force. It didn't matter. We still had to follow their damn orders, whether we agreed with who they are politically or not. We still had to follow their orders. And that's a trickle down thing. And those people in those spots, those higher up spots, those commanders and stuff like that have seemed to have forgotten that.
Yep.
And
well, they put their career, Russ, they put their career in front of their country.
Oh, right? Absolutely. And here's the deal.
That's a shame.
Those ones of that rank, there's nothing going to happen to them other than the fact they're going to be like, number one, you're never going to get another command again. So why don't you just retire?
Exactly.
They're not going to get demoted and retired. They're just going to be allowed to retire, which may be an ulterior motive for why they did it in the first place. We don't know. But I'm sorry, for someone such as me that spent 20 years of my life having given that oath, and it never expires. That kind of sticks in my craw a little bit.
Well, that's old school military as opposed to the newfangled. Listen, I need to join the military because I need a job. Right? That's back in your day when you went in. You went to serve your country. That was something you were going to do. So that's just the difference. Yeah. Let's talk about prep of the weeks, guys.
Yeah. Well, and while they're starting to throw that stuff in there, obviously Diana found my OnlyFans page. She goes, but in the case of Russ's past porn star career, it's true.
Well,
no.
and it is true. It's an only fan page. It's not even fans. It
is only me.
Right, exactly. All right, everybody over in Kick Chat. Any preps of the weeks? What I did this week is, man, we trained. We trained a lot. I had Guy, my battle buddy, come over, and we trained working with some things that Guy got at the gun store or at the gun show to see how effective they were.
Out of it.
Yeah, we did get some good pictures out of it. And also I trained with Jay and his mutual assistance group yesterday, and them boys ran me ragged. I don't know if I can do these running sprints and stuff anymore, Russ. But over there in chat,
Kelly says he put up a new 1080 meter
antenna.
Yep. Antenna.
Nice.
Diana got a new pew pew.
Very cool.
For me, man, I've been just still trying to get ready for this adventure for the summer. That's what we've been doing. I did have a close encounter with a snake. I found out that according to my lovely bride, I do move faster than she's seen me in quite a while. And to quote Angry American, it was a snake kind of snake. It was a garter snake, but it was a fairly good sized one. And I was under the house, and Pete's already heard this story. I was under the house working on my son's plumbing at his trailer, and I was trying to readjust myself, and I reached to go grab a 4x4 that was part of the underpinning. And as I reached, I looked where I was reaching, and I saw the snake. And you want to talk about unassing the AO? That would be this guy. If I wasn't at the weight I am now, compared to what I used to be, I'd probably still be under the trailer. But boy, I was able to move fairly quickly, according to my level.
That's what happens when adrenaline dumps. Larry says he got his JS8 call up and running. Nice. And then Patrick says he picked up some fib sporks. I did hear that. 2G, 5G, Yagi up. Good. Spectrum Analyzer next. Have you guys, now I know Larry did, I think Larry messaged me and said he got the Omega Dynamics book. I hope he reads that. I hope he kind of absorbs that information, especially as a Christian. I don't know what his religious background is, but if you're a Christian, you will certainly enjoy that.
And I did get a magnetic antenna for Teresa's truck so we can communicate via GMRS while we're traveling. So that was the other one.
And you put a backup camera on?
And a backup camera on the utility trailer. So Teresa can see around her, and hopefully we can get up to the lovely state of Wisconsin of no humidity without any major.
Yeah, and 50 degree nights in the middle of August, which is really nice.
And I guess though, I mean, it's not considered a prep of the week, but as of last night, I guess I have officially announced our production company.
Yeah. Oh, well, hold on. Let's hold off on that for just a second, though, because I want to talk about that. Because Angry American let the cat out of the bag last night, but we'll talk about that. I know that I talked about Omega Dynamics, right? I know it's a nonfiction book. They're really going to get you in a mindset as a Christian on some of the things that you may face should stuff go sideways. After you're done with that, while you're waiting for my book to come out, I want you all to consider it. And again, look, I'm not getting any gain from these guys. I don't know anything about these guys. Next book, Fry the Brain, from a guy who's it by John West. Very, very interesting book. I don't know how they allow this to be sold on Amazon. I can tell you that right now, because there is stuff in here that not the everyday, average, ordinary person should know. But it's in there and it's available. So Amazon, it's called Fry the Brain by Mr. John West. So something to consider if you are in a mutual assistance group, you're into prepping, you're the head of the household. At least your leader in your mutual assistance group should have that book.
John West, I have that name is very well known in certain circles.
Very well known, and the fact that he even wrote a book and some of the stuff that's even in this book right here, it will make you scratch your head and say, "How am I able to even buy this?" So, and again, I don't know this guy from Adam, so he just wrote a good book, and I think it would benefit the community. So there you go. Have you seen the Ox Rack for your UTV? Bullshit wants to know.
The Ox Rack. No, I haven't, Bullshite. Send me a link. And Diana says she'll be visiting family in Wisconsin in August. Diana, you'll have to tell us kind of where you're at, and we'll see if we're close, and we'll try to maybe get together and at least say hi.
Mm-hmm. We'll have, and at least you'll get to see, maybe if you come over to Birchwood, you'll get to see. You'll come see some of the parts and pieces that are in Birchwood Barning, because that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Bullshit says it's for loading deer and such.
Yes, I did see that. What I have currently for that bullshite is a rope that I'll roll over the top of one of the roll bars and hook it to the bottom of the tree and the other to a deer, and it seems to be working thus far. I am bringing a winch. I'm actually bringing both of my winches because
Boy, if I called my wife that, she'd have my ass. I can't believe we did that on live podcast. Good God, man.
this guy here is not electrically or electronically inclined. So I am bringing the winch
Oh,
to go on the front of the side by side, not beside me in the seat, to get you to help me hook that up, and then also the winch to hook up onto the roll bar, so I can then pull deer up onto the back of my side by side.
there you go. So you're gonna be all set up, and the UTV will be up in Wisconsin up there. So we'll be able to make our trips to the Chit Chat and Red Rock.
I don't have my hat on. I had
No,
the Red Rock hat on all day. I got the Eden Army hat on right now. I'm looking forward to
that.
Tuesday nights at the Red Rock. I have a stack of poker chips left over from last year that should cover us for at least the first night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing exactly, Kelly. Exactly, Kelly. I'm looking forward to seeing Val. Don't get jealous, Javi. I have another brown friend. Don't get jealous.
Yeah. Val's a different sort. I love him. You know that. But
Yeah.
he is a different sort.
Yeah, and he's from a different. You can tell he's from a different part of the world.
He's from a different part of Puerto Rico.
No, not Puerto Rico. Not Puerto Rico.
He is a politician in the deepest sense. He shakes hands, kisses babies, a smile on his face all the time. He's hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I think Javi met him last time he was up there. Just ordered Patrick. You're welcome, brother. Again, I wish I was able to write a book like this guy, but I don't have the life experiences that this guy had. And it's a good book. You'll enjoy it. Let's see what else we got. Now is the part of the podcast we just go through chat. Sorry we ran long, but I wanted to pick Joel's brain as much as I could. Let's see. John Westbrook, good. Going through chat. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
K Love said she just ordered it on Amazon. Also.
Yeah, I got to look and see if it's available on Kindle or Audible. I got some Audible credits I need to burn up since I don't have anybody coming out with a new book that I have on Audible yet.
You're about to get a few of them. No, he's not an immigrant from Puerto Rico. That was funny that night. Yeah, that was probably one of the things that got that boy booted out of the tribe. I'll tell you that much. So he got kicked to the curb.
Oh, you're talking about
yeah, Pedro. Yeah.
He finally got kicked to the curb.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I don't know.
Man, okay, I'm happy with that. I can't deny that. And Cheese Doodle, if you're still in here, you know I love you, but I'm okay with that.
I didn't mind. Whatever makes her happy, either which way. Doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So apparently, definitely okay. So Cheese Doodle said definitely kicked to the curb. Sorry to hear that. But whatever makes you happy, that's what's important. Our kick chat has turned into a porn chat, by the way. We got something going on with Kelly and Diana. I don't know.
There's no telling.
There you go. Larry says that that book is on Audible, so you can get that for the ride to Wisconsin.
Man, you know, Audible.
I love it. I gotta listen.
Man, I gotta have freaking music I can sing along to, somebody to talk to. No, if I sit there and put an Audible book, I'll be in a freaking ditch.
Yeah, he's single, Susie. Why don't you get up on that? Get up on that.
Wait, she put a hurting on that poor boy. Jay goes, vote for Pedro.
That's hilarious. Russ, I'm gonna let you give your. First of all, let's talk about Broken Spoke Productions. Since let's give you 5 minutes to talk about Broken Spokes Productions.
You know, Teresa and I, you know, I've been running all these podcasts, and you know, for the folks that such as Pete and Chris and and T for Mountain Readiness. Those guys have helped me hone my craft as far as being a production manager on the back of these podcasts. And a huge shout out to Holly, Chris's manager, for teaching me how to do this. And Teresa and I decided, well, maybe we'll start a production company. And if I can get other people that want me to, this poor old redneck, to help them in the background, then okay, fine, I'll do it. Teresa also wants to get into doing narration for Audible books. So that will also be a service that we'd provide, along with if you need something made, like a thumbnail for an event that you want to post on Facebook, we can do that kind of stuff using Canva or whatever. But it's just something we've thought about. And Chris last night let it out of the bag. So you can follow us on Broken Spokes Productions on Facebook. Let's see, that's also YouTube, Instagram, and as far as X is Broken Spokes Pro. And hopefully you guys will follow me. What our initial plan is, anytime we do a podcast such as Pete's or Chris's or T's, I will post a link over there, driving them back to yours, and driving you to their sites so that they can get their monetization and stuff like that. But that's what Broken Spokes Productions is all about. Something for two old retired folks such as me and my lovely bride want to do. But that's what it is, bottom line, with Broken Spokes. So I always end each segment of this podcast with community. And it's a difficult word sometimes. We're not talking just about your community that you live in. We're talking about this community that we have that is in the ether, and meeting people at events like Mountain Readiness, and going to training with these people and learning with these people and learning what makes them tick. That's what community is to me. It's a family. It's a tribe. And guys, always remember, you have a birth date and an end date. Let's worry about the dash. That's all I got, Pete.
Thank you, Russ. Guys, for those of you that have joined us from Joel's channel, we appreciate you being here. We love to bring in our guest viewers to something like this. If this is a podcast you're kind of interested in, I implore you to go ahead and like and subscribe. Those of you that don't know me, I'm a post-apocalyptic author. I've got 4 books penned right now. It's kind of fun. They're kind of cool. I like writing, but I also like to be involved, like Russ said, with the community, right? With the preparedness community. It's something we've always done. It's something we need to do, and we need to stay on top of, especially now. Just because the orange man is in office, right, doesn't mean that everything is okay. It's going to get worse. This summer is going to get hectic. Be prepared, right? And be safe. Look, and at the end of the day, if you can't be safe, remember,
thanks for watching the Eden Army podcast. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And remember, be safe. If you can't be safe, be dangerous.